for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this shared space with me here today. Today I actually want to continue with this topic of ascension and at the same time living our life with utmost celebration and reverence for the essence of life, because as you know, our world is bombarded with information, and we are constantly being bombarded with that information, and as if it's not enough, we're bombarding ourselves with what we believe we need to know. And sometimes we're being fooled by forces of the dark as well to get our attention, to not focus on this path, which is the ultimate Illumined Union and ultimately as well Illumined Ascension. So I recently wrote a lot about this on my Telegram page or channel, and you can check that out. I went quite deep into how we're still being pulled away from life in how many ways, and constantly what's being stirred around us is this belief that if we don't have that information, if we don't know what's happening, we're just going to go with the rest of the dam, in this river of everything that's been piling up for so long, and it's coming out to the surface now. It's going to get carried away, and it's going to carry a lot of us, right, down the river. So because of all of that, right, we seem to worry, and that worry always puts us away from this core moment in this now presence, which is the only true connection with our source of Illumined Union within. And so today I want to share that I've been feeling this deeper surrender to life, because if we're not surrendered to life, the essence of life, and we're living life more on the surface, we're actually quite vulnerable to these tactics, right? And I've been writing about that, how the dark is using that to get even the most enlightened or self-called enlightened beings into this almost like thievery of life force. And so if you're not living life force life, inspired in that way fully, then there's always going to be something vying for our attention. And so during my last few days, and we've had beautiful sunny days here, and I've been really called to just be outside and do outdoors activities and record and share with you some of my beautiful awareness coming through that contemplation. And so what happened today is I woke up with a new sense of resurgence, this feeling of, what I've shared in the previous video. What if you had only a few days left to live? What would you do? So yesterday, along with that, which I've been writing about ascension, I already also wrote a list of 10 things, only 10, that I wish to do before I would ascend, and again, there's no timeline or deadline here, but it's in actuality this deeper merging of life through that desire of life. It's not an attachment to what needs to be experienced, but it's more like a feeling that we're being called to life more and more, to participate with life more deeply. And let's face it, most people don't live life like that. Most people go to 24/7 activities every day, 9 to 5, working, coming home, being tired from all that's being worked about. And the routine always continues, and there's always a postponing of life for the next best thing. And now people are hoping for this quarantine-like state and this lockdown kind of state to end eventually, and we're finally going to be free again, or freed by some alternate forces working for our betterment on the behalf of many. And might happen, might not. But the key here is an understanding that a free being, master of self, the only free being is a master of self, knows how to live that within the self. So let's say you're not allowed to go in the other country unless you get a V, right? We all know that's what that stands for. And most people in our world right now would immediately go for that and say, well, yeah, as long as I can travel, as long as I'm free. But what they don't realize is that within their body, they're no longer going to be free, because they're going to be internally modified, right? We know what these things are doing. They're messing with the RNA system, which is sending signals to DNA, how to rearrange itself. And basically, the freedom we have to find now is the freedom established from within, and it's the freedom to pursue life with zest for life. Almost like, you know, every moment is so precious that you want to drink that juice of life, and I'll explain why. So the first thing I wish to share is yesterday somehow this video found me on YouTube, and it was a YouTube recommendation, which is, I don't know how it happened because I don't watch videos like that, but it was a video from someone about romanticizing our life, you know, our own life, how to live life with romance. And for me, romance has nothing to do with the other person. Romance is a state of living sensually, is taking in that deep sensuality of life and everything this sensual world has to offer. Not making it that the world of senses becomes a priority, but that the essence of soul can move through each moment that's passing through us, because time is measured through moments passed through us, in truth. That's how we actually reflect and experience time as soul beings embodied in these earthly vessels. Time is not measured in a clock, so the mind that was programmed right functions in that way, but not in truth. And so I watched that video. It was pretty simple and very interesting, and although I don't watch videos like that, usually something just pulled me in, because I felt that lack of that desire to be more present with life the way I used to be, right? And I felt like this longing returning, that every single thing you do, it's not what you do, it's how you do it, right? It's doing everything sensually. And that also requires us to slow down. So that video had that message in it, you know, slowing down, savoring the moment. And I'll explain the higher perspective of what that means for our ascension path and why this is so important. It's not just about, well, you know, you leave your footprints here, and if you're living a life of joy, you have a higher frequency, you have more chance to ascend. No, it's not about that per se. What I want to share with you today is the message that Spirit gave me as I was tuning in right now in the beautiful meditation into a deeper meaning behind the essence of feeling life and fueling life, allowing to be fueled through us with the deepest depth and richness. You know, I always go deep because I'm a deep person, and not everyone is living life as deeply, you know. Most people are okay with just living like on top of the surface, or maybe 50% of scraping that surface, and that's fine. That's how they choose to live, but not me. And so when I was contemplating with Spirit, I've gotten this vision that, you know, ascension is not just something that we often perceive, well, when you're ascending, there has to be a gateway, and you go through that gateway and you go into another dimension. What Spirit said is, during physical ascension phenomena, which is, as I've explained, it's mysterious, it's a mystical path. But during that process, what we do, we ourselves actually have to become that doorway. We become that gateway. It's the body becomes a gateway. And that's what physical ascension truly means, using the body, for the body to use all of its multidimensional makeup. And people still don't know that multidimensionality means sensuality. It means intimately being connected to all life. Imagine this like all the nebulas, all the atoms within all the universes, everywhere there, are filled, charged with the potency of Mother's love. This love of creation, the love of life. And most often we're so programmed to be in the mind that we almost like subtract ourselves from the basic infinite equation of life, right? Infinity equals infinity. We've talked about that. And what that does is it creates a lack of sustenance of life force being fed through us. And without a life force, we can't charge or fuel the body enough to reach a state of illumined ascension. So when I went through that transgression, I deeply knew very much at the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my body that if my body stays in these low-like frequencies that were incepted into me, I'm not going to be able to ascend. So naturally fear came up to the surface, which was, oh, I'm going to be just like the rest of people. I'm going to be stuck with them. You know, what a paradox. I came here to assist them, never here before, and then I'm going to be stuck in this loop. No, I can't have that. So naturally, when those pains came and that almost like very progressed terror that was pressed against my very being, felt like it's trying to have me go along that death program. And it's almost like similar to, in my case was not that, but in many people who have this inner voice, this inner whisper. I've talked about the whispers before. These are specialized agents. They are all lower astral beings, and some would possess. And if a being is still high frequency and cannot be possessed fully, there's levels of possession, but still they kind of are vying for their attention because there's still a loophole there. And that's the issue with most people who are maybe very sentient, very sensitive beings, but they haven't fully embraced divine law in the way they live their life through their sovereignty. So they're also being drained, and not just that, they're being coerced into something and manipulated within a specific frequency band that's very low. And hence why many suicidal thoughts arise within many beings who often perceive, well, that's their only way that they can exit what's called the prison planet. And in truth, in illumined truth, you never exit or escape anything. You create your own realm. You become your own illumined realm. You have to become that truth. There is no other way. You have to embody it fully and totally. So there is now a vying for many souls, especially younger ones, to be and pursue that fear path and thinking suicide is a solution. In many religious scriptures, suicide is actually seen as a sin. But it's not. It's not about that. It's about the very simple truth that you're just being recycled back. You're being fed back into the mouth of the womb of the matrix, not creatrix, right? Not the design of divine life and divine origin of life. So what happens is these souls, these poor souls, are just being sucked right back in. So during that time, when there's a tremendous fear that happens with suicide, because what you do through suicide, like I said, it's not about that being sin and you're gonna pay for your sin somewhere, and you can't go to heaven. No, it's about the fact that when a being puts a hand there, when you put a hand against yourself, when you would be willing to ruin yourself in your body and eventually kill it off through your own will, what you do is you create an act of crime against life, just as killing another person, because it's still life. It's your life. That's why it's perceived as so difficult and complex in many realms, and still so much is not understood about that act. And that's why so many dark beings are propagating that and whispering to many beings, there's no other way for you. You better just give in. And these beings might think that's their last remnant of self-control they have. If they do that, if they end their own life, at least they were capable of performing something through their own will. And it's not really the truth, because whenever you go against the very nature of life, you yourself transgress against life. And so it would just basically reverse you. What that does is you become yourself a regressive. Many of these beings we talk about, they're regressive beings. And it kind of puts you in a spot of being vulnerable for that. It's very tricky, a very fine line, right, between knowing how to be with love and thinking, well, that's love because I get to choose how I live, but you actually do it violently. You have to create an act of violence so your body dies. And your body is life. It's the very essence of the mother goddess. And when you do anything horrible to it, like even people just cutting themselves and all these things, what the whispers are doing, they're convincing people that this is somehow, you're feeling a sense of life. Many of these poor victims of those entity possessions and, astral influencing, they believe, they have some sort of feeling, because first they're desensitizing themselves and they're cutting themselves in order to feel at least something, to feel pain. And through that pain, they're able to relate with the world, but it's still very dangerous, something to pursue. And now we're witnessing a rise of that, right? So the issue with that is that when you leave, you go through terror, you go through a gateway of fear. Don't tell me when you have to kill your own body, you have to terminate your own embodiment, that feels loving. No one who commits a suicide has a thought and is embraced in nothing but union of that love, right? So there's this desperate need to escape, but it's a very malicious program that's running in the matrix. So you have some people pursuing that path, you have others feeding the matrix, you have some who would be possessed, and then you have the basic feeding chain of those who are called basic food source. So, I know it's a difficult topic, but I need to include it in this as well because it's coming through for some reason. And so the reason why it's so important for us to engage with life deeply is because when we actually ascend, our body has to reverberate with the utmost frequency of love. It has to be a love of, when we were first born, when we were first put into life, when we were that beautiful child of the divine created as this infinite life spark. Imagine the beauty and the love that the mother, father had felt for that life being born. Like people in this world birthing human babies have a tiny bit of fraction of that feeling, right? And we're kind of bringing through that feeling of love. And then imagine how it feels when those children are being violated and, many, many horrible things that are happening. So this is all transgression against life. The very nature of life is to be lived with love and through love and as love. And so when these things happen and, in any other way, whether suicide or any kind of transgression, abduction, persecution, torture, transgression in any kind of way of doing experiments on human bodies, whatever. It all creates this lowering of the self, so we can no longer feel who we are and remember our true nature. And because of that, we can ascend. So we're trying to then figure out how to ascend mentally through knowledge, which is still the basic doctrine in most of our spiritual circles, is trying to find the basic equation for ascension by doing upgrades. It's not, again, what ascension is. It's not a mathematical equation to solve. That's another hoax. It's another lie put into the matrix. The other extreme is the fanatic thinking that ascension is something just happens and someone takes you or there's a harvesting. No, not as well. It's not what it is. So ascension is, if you can think of being so full of that love for yourself, for life that is you. Imagine all your life we felt an amount of love, and sometimes it was higher, sometimes a lower quotient, but we felt it. Now imagine all that love compiled in one single instant. When that kind of comes together and it locks in, that all the moments that you were, all the seeds of illumined light you've planted, everything you did for others, all the service, eventually everything just, I don't know how to better describe it, but at a quantum level, it just locks in. And there's this is the river dam we want to be talking about. The river that flows in and carries this powerful stream of life force forward, onwards to another altered form. This is what ascension means. It's self-created. It is a self-generating birth of a being that has fully realized who they are at the utmost core level. And the reason why we're being so persecuted on our planet at this time is for us to not achieve that. So for each soul, young soul, there's one program in the matrix. For a medium kind of developer, mature soul, another program, right? Like the youngest of souls get mostly have possessions. They're more possessed. And, it's different versions, different realms, different states of what's happening and being planned. But for, let's say, advanced beings, right? It happened what happened to me through the transgression, through those beings who are just like pure computer intelligence. So much so that they've completely annihilated the aspect of them that is organic. The aspect of its feminine, the principle of life, creation. So they need to create replicas of that life. And they do that instrumentally and with artificial propaganda and perpetuation of life. So for me to experience that and still being able to remember who I am and ascend, that is like a big middle finger. I'm not going to point it to all of them, but it's also a V, which means a celebration for the life that is infinite, the cup of life, the chalice of life, which I've talked about for, quite a long time. And so for me, this is what this means. And so today, I actually felt this upsurge, that this deep desire, this commitment to the Spirit of Christ, which is the Spirit of eternal life, that I'm going to do my best to cultivate that from now on, because we all have moments when we're kind of not so much living the high life, right? And we have low thoughts, and not necessarily coming from us, but maybe we get with interactions with others and they're not so pleasant, and we're going to go like, oh yeah, look at how they are, da, 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 da. And we pick that up. A lot of sensitives are picking up other people's frequencies and they get hung on it. We're not supposed to do that. It's like bringing everything from that circle, which is trying to loop us right out. So we're continuously and infinitely looping, pulling it right back to the core in that center. This is what the Christ needs to do at this time to all of us in order for there to truly be illumination. And it has to be such will, such persistence, such preservation, right? It's like preservation of life, right? It's like you have to preserve your life. It's not a matter of, when I talked about ascension as desire to go to the next step. It's like a denial of life that is now. But you have to love this life, this form, this body so much so that it naturally shifts and morphs into the next octave of what it becomes. When the human is a new inborn something that we, from the perspective of being human as we are now, can't yet pinpoint. That's always a mystical process, right? And so I hope really get my intention as I'm trying to share this through the depth and clarity of my spirit knowing. Somehow getting it across through words is not always the easiest for me, but I hope I manage to do it in some way and form that it's still, comprehended in a way. And so imagine returning to that love that is so pure. No matter what happened to the body, no matter what you experienced during this lifetime, no matter what experiences you had, no matter how people are or have been treating you or maybe still are, it's turning that, whatever it is, back to the inner circle, to the spirit of life, illuminating from within. So it's difficult. Like I said, there's still a lot of bombardment with what we're supposed to know and what's happening on our planet. And this always gets our attention somehow, somewhere. We're always, being hijacked, and I'm being constantly told that the darkness is always going to try. The devil will do whatever it takes to get as many beings across on their threshold. But we, the illumined ones, we're trying to get as many souls as possible to our threshold, meeting enough light quotient to be assured this path, this spiral of ascension and transfiguration into the next octave of what we can become at the soul level. And so that's the main message. And so when I went into today, I kind of really woke up with this sensual feeling. I greeted the sun, which arose in my room so beautifully. Sometimes I wake up pretty early and I look up. I have to look. It would be like 5 a.m., 6 a.m.-ish, something like that. And the sky is orange and it's so beautiful and the colors, and like, and then I get back to sleep and just savoring that life which is now, because we can go into the other extreme. I used to, just last week, I walked somewhere along the river and I couldn't believe that after so many years that I haven't been on this part of the country, there's so much trash now that wasn't there before. All cans and plastics, piles of it along the river. And I was shocked. I was literally shocked. I couldn't move myself. I was like, okay, this world is just dark and ugly, and look at what it has become, and it's all been hijacked. And I was so angry at that time. This is how darkness works. So when you're too much so focused on that and you can't find a gift, a blessing in something, no matter how crass and crude in this moment, right? This gets us down. This is something we will absolutely not allow, right? We won't allow that to happen. And so what I did today when I woke up with this good feeling, I said, I'm going to have a good day. That's what I'm going to create. And I really desire to be along the river because I love walking along the river, and I don't have my river anymore. So I found another one and I drove there and I was exploring, and I was overtaken by this beautiful scenery in the forest. Flowers everywhere, snowdrops and purple ones everywhere. I was walking on a magical carpet and finding new spots and just being in the blissful state. And there's other things around that I don't particularly like, but I was bringing the focus back to how that feeling is still honoring life, having that desire to honor life, that the Christ spark is in everything, that not all imagery is as beautiful as a beautiful snow-covered mountaintop. Even the Alps are no longer as they used to be. I can tell you that for a sure fact. So our challenge now is to create the inner realm, is to paint the inner realm with something that is of illumined colors, which is every color of the rainbow spectrum you can imagine, and bring that creativity from deeply within. Because most people who are feeling life is void and dull and dark and stagnant is they don't live that divine spark. They think they do, but they're living a very tiny fragment of what they are and their true divine potential. And most of them too afraid to try anything new or change their life maybe totally. So it doesn't have to be much. Like now, these travel challenges, right? I never was such a huge traveler. I always was focused on creating abundance of richness, of landscape from within. So the same mountains I used to climb so many years are now living here in my heart. I can close my eyes and I can see them. Sometimes I'm taken into my landscapes that I love the most, sometimes into my magical spot, my secret spots that only I know about. And I'm with them even though I'm not there physically. And this is kind of sometimes when life is so bad and you're in difficult situations, you can do that. It's a magical trick and it's not an illusion. You're not deceiving yourself. You're not being in the present moment, but you're bringing the essence into something that in this now moment when you're physically witnessing it, you can't feel that. You can't take that from it. That's why we fill the soul first from within. And for me, beauty is the element of life that it's too often too neglected. Because through me, with beauty, I will nourish my soul. Beauty is the food of my soul, and more so than physical food. You know, the minerals that we need, the vitamins, the nutrients. Beauty is the nutrient that goes directly into the soul. And when I have that, when I'm surrounded with beauty, and this is amazing what the body can feel, the level of pleasure and sensual awakening to life the body can feel. And this is why it is so important to continuously build that in the world that's trying to distort that and ruin it completely, take that away, distort the mineral, the elemental kingdoms, the plant kingdom, animal kingdoms. It's all being done right in front of our eyes. But remember, the world is being built of soul forms first, of spirit, light, body, luminescent forms. So if you can absorb this world and take all of its creation into maybe the next one, that's going to be the gift. Maybe that will be the gift we're meant to do and bring. So the gift of the Divine Mother is the savoring of this moment, not just because, well, each moment can be the last one, but because of what this means for the path of ascension. Ascending through beauty of life, ascending through the grace of the luscious moments that surround us. You know, some people will go their entire life living routine, status quo, day to day, normalcy, conformity, too scared to just allow themselves to be this magical rainbow child that they are. Everyone is. I'm not the only one. People think there's specific beings born with that privilege. No. I had to take that the hard way, because I realized I'm a free spirit and I will live to the very last day of my life like this. Even if maybe one day the freedom is taken away, I'll know how to ascend because I have loved all the way through. And not only that, but to have the kind of faith and trust in God that it's leading you in that direction. Without faith, without trust, it's not a blind kind of trust, blind faith. It's a knowing. True faith is deep knowing that God works through you and as you. And if that's your desire, it will happen exactly how you want it. So in that case, we also have to continuously say no to the bad boo-boos and the enforcements upon us. And, that which tries to conform us and say, well, you can't ascend because look, this is what we're doing to your planet. Haha, there's no escape from that kind of level of terror. Yes, there is no escape, but there is always ascension, because ascension is not escaping a prison planet. Ascension is ascending with the planet. And what's your first source with the planet? Your first source of connection? It's your body. Your body's of earth. That's why it's called physical ascension, my beloveds. It's physical. It means every atom and molecule of your body has to be absorbed into that love. Love of a luminous creation. And that's what many masters have been trying to show us. They've said, well, what we did, we just brought our form back to that primordial state of that creation when it was just like particles and waves. And we managed to work with luminosity. We can shift our bodies. They've just learned how to do that. Simple as that. It's not a mental learning, but they learned it through applying the principles of divine law, knowing how God works, knowing what God is, what the universal principles are and what the universe is. Not a scientific one, what they're trying to present it to us. Something much different. And when you understand and unlock those mystery keys, you have your own key to your own ascension. So, lots of different key elements here to implement and think about today. Beauty, sustenance for the soul. Savoring each moment, living fully present, exuding the essence of life from the inside out, and also feeding ourselves from the outside in. Beauty is an internal state, but it's reflected also from without. And the next important thing, keep saying no to that which opposes the path of the Christ, trying to prevent the ascension of many, many soul beings. No, right? I'm wearing my peacock ring today because peacock is grace and it's nobility, it's royalty. That's who we are, remember, beloveds. Anyone watching this video now has a spark of the Christ within. Otherwise, you'd not be drawn to my monologues. It's basically what they are. So think about it. Think about how each day you wake up and you just start doing things randomly. And how just one tiny fraction of a parallel reality sparking up, igniting within you can change that and make life into this self-proliferating experience full of, like those magical balls that, you put into the bathtub and they just start pouring out these bubbles. That's how life can be. And let's not use the excuses of what is happening on the outside. No. Because it's our responsibility. If you are a soul on the path of ascension, it is your key responsibility to create that from within you. And that's how the outside is perceived and how we still are loving the world. We're not giving up on the world. We're not giving up on our own bodies. Right? Period. So anyway, a longer message today. It's interesting because I wanted to make it short. Somehow it wasn't meant to be. It's a very extensive topic. So maybe just go into your own contemplation, see what comes through. And until we meet again next time, as always, so much love and patience for this process and towards yourself. And take time, take time. And every moment try at least maybe do one thing that is new that makes you feel alive. We need to feel alive, exuding life. If we don't feel alive, we're basically half dead, right? Because we're not just living a life, like leading it. Life has to be constantly streamed through us, like this pulse. Oof, ecstatic, electric, magnetic, right? But remember also the key thing we also mentioned, slowing down. In that slowing down, there is a powerful magnetic force field that you're feeling that is the womb of life, the womb of the mother. And that force field itself is a powerful hub. And that hub is what makes this ascension, the physical ascension, possible, because everything is truly magnetic. Electricity is that current of life that just connects things. Electricity connects things. Even at the lowest physical 3D level, electricity, right? It plugs things in and it connects us. But magnetic force is that which from everything is created and generated. And if we're not slowing down, we can feel it. We're spinning on a loop, right? And the magnetic core is always here, like this. And then it's spinning in the loop. So when we're slowing down, we're feeling that spark of life. And we're being, pulled and around it, and around we go. And when we do that, we're kind of spinning only around our own core, this womb of life. It's kind of simple analogy that Spirit showed me to show you. So thank you for staying vigilant and watching. I know it's been a lot of videos lately, keep coming one after the other. It's probably making up for lost time, when I was on my deathbed nearly. So it's been really missing, and I, enjoy doing it and bringing the quality of life through to you. So thank you for watching. As always, so much love is in power. Take care, and I'll see you when I do.